Hello Com100 students. I just want to address some of the requests for making a short video about how to address the Chapter 8 discussion forum. This is the Semester 2 Chapter 8, so it's from our new textbook BUSN11. And we are talking here about accounting from a business management perspective. So let's look at the discussion question. So I have asked you to read a particular article in order to just prepare and orient you in order to complete the discussion forum. I am going to go to the article at the link shortly just to explain what I expect there, but just to make the connection between the article and the theory. The article is very lengthy, and as I stated in class, I would like two things from you. I would like you to scroll through the article and just get a sense of the company names and actually just sort of take in how many business scandals there have been, in fact, in the last decade, and then select from your scrolling down two companies' names to read in a bit more detail from the article. And then that means that you will have two references: the article that I've provided and the new textbook BUSN11. Now, I've provided in this bullet point list for you things to connect to the article in your discussion forum. They may not all be relevant, and you will see that when it comes to the criteria for the discussion, it asks you to mention at least two theories. In the bullet point list, I'm providing more than that. So let's look at what some of the theories might be. Describe why the accounting function is important. You will notice in many of the business scandals, it's quite clear that something went wrong with regards to some of the stakeholders that have an interest in the financial statements and how they were prepared, and in fact, perhaps even intentionally, often, unfortunately, intentionally or fraudulently misrepresented something. So that's often a point of theory that you might be able to connect to the particular company that you've chosen to read. Then another point of connection would be the value of these financial statements. So it's quite easy for us to identify the value of a balance sheet, an income statement, and a cash flow statement when they're accurately prepared. They provide valid, reliable, comparable information for business decision making. But here, in the context of the article, we're looking at some of the fallout. What can go wrong if these statements are incorrectly prepared or presented? And that's often what plays out in the context of these scandals. Next, I've listed, for example, the value of adhering to accounting standards. As you've mentioned, you're working with IFRS and the International Accounting Standards Boards predominantly as the standards to adhere to. So there's value in adhering to these standards. And then in the context of the crises and scandals in the article, what indeed is the cost of not adhering to these standards? And you can look at the cost from different perspectives, not just the financial cost or implications and repercussions for companies, but also what happens to the reputation of the company or of the auditor that they had, of their major clients or investors. Does it taint their suppliers or anyone else they had important relationships with? Does it perhaps even taint that company or host country as an investment destination? It really depends which example you've chosen, but you'll see that the cost is certainly not just financial. So, when I've asked you to think about the theory that you're going to connect it to, I do appreciate that when you look at Chapter 8, where we're talking about some matters related to accounting that are indeed very obvious to accounting students, it might seem harder to spot the theory. I do just want to highlight that the theory here is, again, basically every subsection in the textbook. So remember that textbooks provide for us a status quo, here's where we are, summary of theory in a particular discipline at a particular point in time. They've aggregated all of that together. So when we look at a subsection, for example, about who the users are of accounting information, think about when we've spoken about different stakeholders and how their interests influence the company. There's a wealth of theory there for you to discuss. We look at, for example, accounting standards and why they're important, and preparing the financial statements accurately. And again, there's a body of theory for you to refer to there. So I want you to make sure that as you're discussing this, you tell us who the two companies are that you have chosen. And as you relate why it's important to get things right and give examples by contrasting how things have gone wrong in these companies, that you do display a sound understanding of the theory. This is probably going to go beyond just saying a balance sheet is, or a user of accounting information, for example, is. I really want you to go beyond that introductory knowledge that I know you all have and explain some of the implications and repercussions of these matters. As I've mentioned, I'm expecting at least 2 references, the BUSN11 textbook, and then secondly, the article in question. Let's go to the article. I've copied and pasted the article into my browser, and I do want to mention that it is hosted for free, so there are quite a few adverts. Please do avoid them as you read through the article. I want to highlight here just really the length of the article. And so what I've encouraged you to do is to have a very quick browse. So go through the company names. There we see, for example, Steinoff that I've mentioned in class, and Tungard Hewlett that we've also spoken about, some of the Gupta-owned companies. And as you scroll down, you're going to see just, that was quite a quick scroll, some of the scandals that you've maybe more or less familiar with. Here we've landed on a slightly older scandal to do with the Soccer World Cup in 2010. So as you scroll down the list, there might be things that are indeed less familiar to you, which is why I do encourage you to just have a closer look at the companies. All right. Now, as you go through, perhaps for a particular reason, there are companies that grab your attention and you decide, I want to dive in and read a little bit more about certain companies. You are also welcome to do an additional bit of research if you feel that you want to just really get to grips with what the issue is that happened in a particular company. This is very much a summary article, so that might be necessary, although it is not a requirement of this particular assignment. So this particular issue with Goldfields that I've landed on here is about they struggled to secure a license, a new license for their South Deep mine, which I believe is one of the deepest shafts, if not in fact gold mine shafts in the world. And so there was an issue really with regards to the licensing, empowerment partners, mineral resource requirements. And so it really became quite contentious. We see that one of the representatives decided, they are going to tank the deal unless they're given a bigger cut. And so as I'm looking at these elements, something that becomes quite clear to me in terms of what kind of impropriety happened here is very much a stakeholder issue. Now, we would have picked this up as we started looking at the equity breakdown of who had a share in this deal. So we would have seen, in the first license, who was the breakdown of who had a share in the deal, and then in the second license. And so we can see, okay, there is a stakeholder issue at play here. If you are looking for something that has a more clear accounting aspect, you are welcome to keep looking through all of these aspects. As I've mentioned, and I think it's our second one actually, the Tungard Hewlett aspect, that was very much a financial statement matter, and not that you all have to go do Tungard Hewlett, but just to say there were certain past practices that do not reflect the business's performance accurately. This is a very polite way of saying that the financial statements were not valid, reliable, and comparable. And so I have mentioned to you in class that a lot of this emerged when the CEO retired and a new CEO came on board, looked at the finances and thought, something is just not right here, and appointed new auditors to come and see what actually happened. It resulted in their shares being suspended on the stock exchange. for quite a substantial amount of time as they were redoing some financial statements. We see that there were financial results that were overstated. So in this Tongaat-Hewlett example, there is a lot to discuss with regards to the users of financial information. We have employees that engineered the financial statements to their benefit to draw very large bonuses. This misrepresentation was very detrimental for suppliers, customers, and other stakeholders, for example. And we also have a matter of just the financial statements that were misrepresented. What does this mean for the auditor's reputation? What does it mean for the company's reputation? So really easy to find our two theories in this particular example. I encourage you to go through, pick a company and see if you can make the connection between our cut and dried accounting theory and why it matters and how we can see that so very clearly when things go wrong in companies.